Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and notes mashup video today, and starting with Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz, who face off September the 4th, and they came face to face for the first time this week. So we'll go down to their press release quotes, and you can see here on screen, here's a couple of different images from the presser. But of Andy Ruiz, so we won't start with the first bits of his statement. We'll get to a little bit further down. Feels good to have this fight set. We know this isn't going to be an easy fight. He has a different style than what I'm used to. We've trained really hard at the gym to perfect the craft. He's going to bring it. But we just have to do the best we can do to get this victory and go on to win world titles. This is a big fight for me to climb back up the ladder. The main focus has just been training my skills. This isn't a weightlifting contest, so I've been getting back to what originally made me champion. I'm not here to lose weight or to look the part, I just want to be the part. I think this is a similar fight for me to the Anthony Joshua fight. It's just that he's a lefty. We have a great team and we're working hard. September 4 is going to be a hell of a fight. I wanted to work with the new trainer Alfredo Asuna a long time ago. It just wasn't the right time then. He's used to training for lefty fighters. I feel this is exactly what I need for this fight. My team is going to bring the best out of me. I've been doing this all my life. I've been fighting since I was 6 years. Okay, we'll leave it there for Andy Ruiz Jr. I guess a couple of thoughts there. So working with the new trainer Alfredo Asuna, we knew that he was not with Reynoso, but it wasn't exactly clear why. Perhaps the southpaw element is part of it. It's hard to say. Andy Ruiz Jr. was always going to be with Eddie Reynoso for at least the first fight, but after that, as I said, quite a number of times, all bets were off after the first fight. But in public, recently, he had sort of stated that maybe Reynoso could be back in the picture down the line, but he really hasn't. He's tried to keep his bridges intact, unlike Ryan Garcia, who just burnt all his right through down to the foundations. So Andy Ruiz Jr. saying that Luis Ortiz, this fight is like Anthony Joshua. Which part of it? Which fight? What exactly is he meaning? I mean, I don't think Anthony Joshua and Luis Ortiz necessarily fight that similar, but I do think that we are going to have Luis Ortiz trying to use the height and reach advantages that he does have over Ruiz Jr. Remembering that Ruiz Jr. is basically a front foot counterpuncher. He likes to work off what you give him. So Luis Ortiz, I think, is going to be quite judicious with what he's throwing. I don't think he's going to rush in there, and given he's looked a little bit suspect in his most recent fight against Charles Martin, getting clipped and hurt, dropped by a jab, I think Luis Ortiz will be patient and not wanting to get into a sort of a trade-off with Andy Ruiz Jr. But we know Ortiz can hit hard, so Andy Ruiz Jr. is going to have to be careful. But it could be quite a low-volume sort of fight and then pop off and there's a stoppage. But you have Luis Ortiz saying, I'm grateful to be back in this position and fighting at the top level. I'm thankful to Andy for taking this fight and I'm truly looking forward to it. As of right now, we're preparing for the best Andy Ruiz Jr. We know that he's not just any fighter, he's a former world champion, and that doesn't happen by luck. I'm ready for him, and may the best man win. So I'll just skip down a sentence there. He says, I got good experience from fighting Charles Martin. There were some hiccups in the fight, but I'm going to carry the lessons that I learned into this fight. I don't believe there's any advantage to the fact that I've been more active than Andy. I believe in hard work and the mental makeup of a fighter. That's what I've been focusing on day after day. My main objective right now is to win on September 4, and then after that, I'll see who crawls out and steps up. So far, there haven't been too many at the elite level. This fight is going to end in a knockout, and I'm sure Andy thinks the same. This one isn't going to go 12 rounds. And I agree, I think this probably does end in a stoppage. And I'm calling this one the question mark fight because we've got questions. Not just about Luis Ortiz and, him being very seasoned at allegedly 43 years old, but Ruiz Jr., the inactivity, not living the life, didn't look great against Chris Arreola. We have questions, and this fight, well, hopefully it will answer some of them. Moving on to Oleksandr Uysk, Anthony Joshua, the rematch, 20th of August in Saudi Arabia. So tickets went on sale this week, so it wasn't so much that I was interested in that, because make of it what you will in terms of that. It was more the quotes from the fighters. Usyk says, "I'm working hard in my training camp to be in the best shape possible for the rematch. With the help of the Lord, I will overcome the biggest challenges to make it happen. I want the crowd to be excited with the fight. I want them to remember it for a lifetime." And Anthony Joshua says, August 20 is set to be an unbelievable night of championship-level boxing. For any sports fan, this is not to be missed. It has all the ingredients to go down in boxing history. Locally, I know that boxing has grown massively, and it was great to see thousands of people come to Riyadh for the clash on the dunes. I'm hoping to see even more in Jeddah in a few weeks' time. So not too detailed in terms of, how their preparations are going, but a couple of quotes nonetheless, taking place August the 20th. And actually there was a story that appeared on Boxing Scene just a few days ago that had one of Usyk's training partners in it, and his manager was describing that Usyk was in very good shape and he was busting up some of his sparring partners. But I will have, in the next day or two after this video is up, different sparring videos in terms of who's in different camps for the respective fighters. Moving on, and this is actually just going back to Andy Ruiz Jr. Clearly I didn't have the order of my pages ready and waiting for the right ones, but of a potential fight with Deontay Wilder should he get past Luis Ortiz. He says, "I don't want to take easy fights. That's why we're fighting Luis Ortiz, because he's a hard-hitting guy, an awkward guy. I'm not underestimating him like in my last fight against Chris Ariel or nothing. We're training really hard. I would want to fight Wilder if he comes out of retirement." And there is talk Wilder is coming back and potentially stepping into a big fight. We'll have to see. But Wilder and Ruiz, should Ruiz beat Luis Ortiz, it makes a lot of sense. And probably one of the biggest fights in terms of the PBC in-house that they can make at the moment. Moving on, so Eddie Hearn is having a little bit of a jibe at Tyson Fury, saying he's a genius, Fury, because no one really questions what he says. He's just said you've got to pay him $500 million to come out of retirement, and the next sentence he says he'll fight Anthony Joshua for free on non-pay-per-view. And that is true. Tyson Fury does say a lot of things, but then again, I think for most boxing fans, you don't need to question it because you know that his statements can change from one day to the next. The American heavyweight Jarrell Big Pharmacy Miller has a message for his haters ahead of his second comeback fight, which is this weekend.
And still, you can kiss my black ass.
Meanwhile, fellow American heavyweight Joey Dawejko, who's recently unretired, will be topping a card on September the 1st in Philadelphia. His opponent will be Mike Marshall. Simon Kean also set to return soon. He'll be on an undercard in September. And actually, in terms of what he's saying here, because I don't speak French, he says, "I haven't fought in Quebec for almost 3 years. I'm more motivated to give you the best performance of my career. However, it is still too early to reveal the identity of my opponent, who will represent one of the biggest challenges in my professional career." So the fact that it's late July at this point, and this is September the 9th, and it's apparently going to be the biggest test of his career, I'm not really expecting much at that relatively short notice. Question marks about Kean and how far he can go. He was decked by Shawndale Winters in his last fight, previously knocked out. But I think whatever's going to happen, it's going to be fun to watch, because he's kind of car crash sort of viewing in a sense, because you don't know really what's going to happen. At some point, he's going to get sparked badly, and he already has earlier in his career. And that card is one of a number that Eye of the Tiger management have announced. Obviously, Arslanbek Mahkmudov pictured center here of the graphic. He is also back in September headlining a card, opponent TBA. So the fact also that it's 6 or 7 weeks out for Mahkmudov's card, not good news that he has no opponent. And remembering they've set a date here, so the closer it gets, the more money I'm sure opponents will be asking for. They're already struggling to get him decent names, but at this point he just needs activity to stay busy as well, because otherwise he's rotting on the vine. And in terms of this weekend, there's a little bit of heavyweight action. So on this Joet Gonzalez and Isaac Dogbe card, you have Guido Vianello. So he's returning out of from a year out of the ring, facing Rafael Rios. 8 rounds, and they've weighed in at 244 for Vianello. See here on screen. In terms of Vianello, so he's been relatively inactive since he escaped with a draw against Kingsley eBay 2 years ago now, and that time has gone fast. So questions about how far he can go. He's been out of sight, out of mind. He's been back in Italy, had a few different injuries which he was healing. He's been trying to retool, trying to get better. So we'll see some potential developments in this fight against Rios. Also on the card, you have Colton Warner facing Jimmy Barnes. Also, the 6'9" prospect Antonio Mireles facing Danny Reyes. And Mireles has recently shorn his long locks, so he looks very different now. Looks a lot sort of more menacing given he's shaven that hair off. And also there's a fight that's off TV, Cayman Audi versus Anthony Garrett. Not too sure about those guys. That seems like some sort of club level fight, but off TV, so probably won't really get to see that. But the other stuff, you should be able to catch that either on ESPN Plus and ESPN. So, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.